Hello and welcome to Fandom Fridays. I would like to apologize for as I was saying, I'd like to apologize for the on. Yeah, I would like to apologize for missing out last week. We were all at a con and it was really great, and Tracy got to meet the guy that she's the biggest fan of. Oh, Vic. What's Trixie doing? My life very easier. We have a problem. Well, what is it, Trixie? It's all these Eevees. Did we really have to go to that Eevee farm at the con and adopt the entire evolutionary line? Well, Trixie, it's always been a personal dream of mine to own every single set of Eevee in plus form, so of course we had to go back and adopt all the Eevees. Yes, but now they are running amok in the studio. I do hope you have a plan to, weed out the herd, make sure that they all have a good home so they don't end up destroying the entire freaking studio! Well, of course, Trixie. Vegeta's getting currently adopted by Luna. Mr. Mrs. Snuzzles, aka Bloom, is getting adopted by Fluttershy. Rainbow Jazz has been looking at Bolt. Jolt! And I've been thinking about keeping little Eevee. You've already given them names. Yep. Just to make sure that we know who is who. Ain't that right, Eevee? Oh, you haven't given her one yet? Not yet, but I'll think of one. What do you think about Eevee? Would you like to name next? I'm thinking about having her be the mascot along with the cat. Fine, whatever. Just introduce the show. Well, anyway, I'd like to apologize for that because, like I said, we were at a con, got a whole bunch of cool stuff, maybe some new ideas for some new fanfics for the rest of the stuff, but I realized I gotta do this show. So, I want to do something special. However, there's one tiny little problem. As you know, we've been doing elements of Harvey and Savior Worlds for the past few weeks, and we're nearing its end, and good golly, I want to complete that instead of doing this! I mean, don't get me wrong, guys, I love you, but there's just some things you guys want to sacrifice. How about this? How about, to make up for it, we read a fanfic that you who always enjoyed from back during your dark times. Trixie, somebody's already doing it's a dangerous business, and you know how I feel about doing fanfics that other people have already done. I can't do it. Oh, no. Not a dangerous business. The other fanfic you love. You mean, oh yes, that's one. Oh, yeah, that's the one. Okay, so I think we got a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, we here at the Treeberry Memorial Library am proud to present the classic, the award-winning Always a Ranger by JVTreviso. Now, we're going to do something special this time, since the Always a Ranger series, each one of them could be their own separate fanfic or their own separate story. I'm going to just pick one chapter from Always a Ranger and read it out for you guys, so that way you can understand a little of why I think this fic is so great. And then I'll give you the review afterwards. But, long story short, to set up everything, this is an alternate universe where Tommy and Kim got together, well, not completely together, but they started rekindling their old connections at Trini's funeral. As you know, it's a Power Ranger fan tradition to sometimes reference truly trained staff. Anyway, and through it all, through the first few episodes, we see Tommy and Kim getting closer together again. We see them talk on the phone, talk about their fears, talk about their hopes. We see them bond over the past, over Tommy's new students, the Dino Rangers, Connor, Trent, Kira, and Ethan. They bond over their connection. They bond over how they've grown as Rangers. They even bond over old friends. And slowly, over time, they realize that the love that they had shared far transcends whatever Saban wrote. And over time, they have bonded back together again. This chapter, chapter 8, picks up right at that moment, when Kimberly comes back to Reefside. So, without further ado, we present to you the Dreamberry Memorial Library's presentation of Always a Ranger, Chapter 8. Always a Ranger by JVTreviso. Chapter 8. Home is where the heart is. I can't begin to describe how restless I am as I stand at the edge of the metal and fabric bedded gate, dividing the gate area with the central part of the waiting area at Surfside Airport. With the new policies about security screening, I can't wait at the gate like the old days. There was a moment, a few minutes, where I contemplated using my invisibility to just walk up there. But habits die hard, and using my powers to get a little closer to the gate isn't a good excuse to break the rules of having power. So I continue to wait and stare and feel nervous as hell. Still, there are some things you're willing to put up for the sake of love and romance. Yeah, I'm waiting for Kim. Finally. Unfortunately, it's not for good, though. We've had a long talk after she got back from D.C. I told her about my recent Ranger events and relayed Chase's comments about us. She reported that the team had done well with the press events, and that the coaches and athletes were being given a 3-day weekend, coinciding with the end of spring break. The words were out of my mouth before the thought even registered in my head. Then get on a plane and come out here for a weekend. Kim, in her infinite wisdom, complained that she didn't know she could afford it. I offered to pay. And no, I'm not independently wealthy now. By teaching high school, almost all of my student loans have been waived. So I took out a small loan to float the cost of the ticket. Besides, I couldn't wait to see her any longer. After another half-hour discussing, including what the weather in Reeside was like, I finally convinced her to come out for the weekend. I called up the local travel agency with the times and locations Kim had given me, and booked her on the first flight to Surfside Regional Airport, and the last flight back that she could reasonably take and get to work Monday morning. They FedExed the tickets to the training camp, and she emailed me when she got them. That was 3 days ago, and now I'm standing here, waiting for her to get off the plane and come down to the mass waiting area on the other side of the security gates. It's really ironic, don't you think? That nearly after 8 years, I'm finally picking my girl up from the airport after putting her on a plane for the other side of the country. I glanced at my watch and tapped my hiking book for a bit. The plane should have landed 10 minutes ago. Where was she? I tugged self-consciously at my clothes. Black jeans and a t-shirt and my old brown leather bomber jacket. My hand follows the path left of my hair. It slides down to the slight beard I'm sort of cultivating for that older, yet hip teacher look. I don't think I had it the last time we saw each other. I hope she doesn't mind. My mind is lost in the thought of having her complain about it. My mind willingly sleeping it off, changing my clothes and selling everything I own to please her, when I hear a loud shout from a voice I recognize better than my own. Tommy! The next moment, I'm trying to keep my balance as 105 pounds of Kimberly fly from the walkway, coming from the gates, and straight to my arms. Not that I'm complaining, but I really wasn't expecting such an enthusiastic reception. Okay, I was hoping, but didn't expect it. Hi, beautiful, I reply, and then decide to hell with it. I need this, and pull her into me and kiss her passionately, standing in the middle of the walkway, people having to go around us as we get lost in each other for so long. And if you look to your left, you can see how not to give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Now we're walking. JVTreviso is the only reason I break the kiss, and I refuse to let her out of my grasp. Of course, I know she's not trying to get away either. I look down at that lovely face, the smile in those eyes, and I have to remind myself to keep breathing. Mac? Yeah, Mala? You are so going to have to outdo that layer. Live pleasure. She's here. Hi, handsome. Miss me? She has in that sultry tone I've been hearing a lot more these days, and I feel my jeans get a bit tighter as I carefully lower her feet to the ground. This is not the place to ravish her. I have a perfectly good bedroom at home for that. More than you could possibly imagine, I reply softly, pulling a hand from its place on her back to frame her cheek. So, where's your luggage? Or did you decide you didn't need clothes on that trip? I leer at her as he takes one of her hands that had been locked behind my neck to smack me good upside the head. Okay, I deserve that. But damn! Am I hoping she didn't pack? I had to check it. The new size restrictions and all. You're here for 2 days, Kim. What did you pack that had to be checked? Hey, I'm a woman. Did you expect me to come with one shirt, a pair of jeans, a dress, and be done with it? C-Mock argues. We laugh at that. I feel my heart start to beat faster. If I didn't know any better, I say that I was starved for Kimberly contact, but we've been talking almost every other day, so it can't be that. However, the fact that she's here now, in my arms, like she belongs, seems to be a real powerful reason for my heart to be pounding in my chest. Fine, you packed like a girl. Now, we have to take the time to get your bag for the carousel. I hope you're happy. She snuggles to my side, a perfect fit as always, and grins. Yes, I'm happy. I didn't miss the subtext of her words. Me too. And with that, we're off to the baggage area. My arm tightly plastered to her body as she keeps herself tucked against me. Somehow, we make our way without tripping over anyone or anything. Get her bag and get out of the airport. Toss her bag into the back of the Jeep and open the door for her. Once we're both in, I'm on the road and way into the house. The early evening air whips at Kimberly's brown hair, and I grip the steering wheel tighter to keep from reaching over and running my fingers through it. Just get her in the house, and then you can ask if you can worship her as you peel off each stiff of clothing she has on. Of course, that plan gets complicated as Kim reaches over and puts her hand on my knee. I barely stop from jerking the wheel at the shock of her touch. Somehow, though, I keep the course and pull it into the drive with a screech of the tires. Reaching behind me, I grab Kim's bag and climb her out of the Jeep. Kim doesn't wait for me this time, and is out and next to me before I can move on to 2 steps around the car. The pictures made it look bigger, she says, nodding towards the house. The charm is only outweighed by its undersized water heater. I guess we'll have to shower together to make sure we both get hot water then. Okay, that's it. I can't wait any longer. I grab Kim's hand, haul her along with me, dropping her bag at the door as I light left-handed to open the door. As it swings open, I shove her bag aside with my foot, pull her aside, and slam the door shut and push her against it, my mouth on hers in seconds. I realize I'm being caveman-like, but damn! I can't believe she's here. Finally. There's a long-term future in the picture after all these years. I know I'm probably assuming a lot. I should have been a little more polite about this. But the way that Kim just hooked her legs around me and is pulling my head down to her forcefully tells me that we're on the same wavelength here. My hands move from the previous position, and I lift Kim slightly off the floor, her ass in my hands, and her feet settle beneath my butt. Reaching one hand away as I secure the door with my weight, reach up to caress her face, then work my way to her cotton-covered shoulder, down the curve of her breast as I think about every makeout session that got interrupted during our high school days by putties or monsters or something else equally nasty. I can only hope that Mezagon doesn't decide to reestablish that tradition. A moan from my mouth focuses me back on Kim's immediate reaction to my hand's new location, and I realize we're finally going to make love. We've never had the courage to do it back in high school. We weren't ready to move in that direction after we got back in contact after train's railroad. Never had the opportunity to consummate our relationship during last meeting, when we admitted that we still loved each other. Our timing had always been wrong. Was it still wrong? I'll pull back suddenly. Kim opens her eyes and stares at me questioningly. God, I have never seen that look in her eyes that I see there now. Oh, I really don't want to ask this. Are you sure about this, beautiful? I ask in barely controlled, lust-filled voice, carefully lowering her to the floor and releasing her as every cell in my body screams at me to stop being stupid and take her now. I mean, this is only for the weekend. Until you make a decision if you want to make a life out here with me and all. She sets me up with a heated kiss that has my head spinning. Her hands reach down to find mine and pulls them back to around her waist. I love you, Tommy Oliver. When everything gets settled, we'll be together. So let's start with the new phase of our relationship tonight. I think we waited long enough. She intoned, smiling that wake-and-walk grin at me that always melted my heart. With Kim's blessing, I pull her along with me as I back up towards my bedroom. Ahem! A message from the management. You see, one of the many awards that this fic has won was Best Lovemaking Scene. And sadly, we do try to keep it a little bit clean here, at least PG-13 on this show. At least until martial art freak user can actually get out the guts to read a lemon. Still haven't gotten the nerve to do it yet. Well, still nervous. Still also trying to find a good one. So, we are going to cut the scene because, you see, the authoress also wrote 2 versions of this. A clean one that you're reading now from fanfiction.net, and a really good lemon that's on her site. We are reading the clean version. Merely because, again, we're trying to keep this clean for all of you out there listening. Maybe if we actually create a martial art for user dark channel, we'll do a lemon. But until then, we're cutting this scene. Also because Trixie gets highs from reading lemon scenes. Trixie can't handle it. So, with our apologies, we are cutting out the scene. If you guys want to read it and see the hot, steamy, lemony goodness, you can. It's available on her site. It's on under the hot section. You can read it and enjoy it all you want. You lemon-loving pervs. With our regards, the management, Trixie Lulamoon, Twilight Sparkle, and Rainbow Dash. And now, back to our story. I woke to the smell of eggs and bacon. Rolling over, I jolted as I realized I was alone. But the sounds coming up from the kitchen told me I wasn't truly alone. Scrounging around the pile of our clothes that still cluttered the floor, I throw on my underwear and jeans and pad out to see what my heart is up to. Funny, but after her being here for less than a day, the house feels more like my home than it ever has. Of course, you know what they say. Home is where the heart is. I smile as I stand at the doorframe to find Kim cooking at the stove, her hands moving from one pan to another, her head turning every once in a while towards the toaster. As I quietly make my way to the kitchen, the toast pops up and decides she needs some help. Just before she grabs it, I reach out and catch her by the waist. She jumps slightly and turns the spatula in hand. I find that smile on her face again and can't help but return it. You ditched me, I whine as I lean down to kiss her lightly. I thought I'd been dreaming. I couldn't sleep. It's nearly noon my time, she replies, kissing me back. But her kiss is deeper, and I have the desire to make her my breakfast rather than eat all this food she's made. I don't remember stalking all this. You must have planned having breakfast in bed this weekend. Not that I'm complaining. I shrug. I guess my memory can still be Swiss cheese sometimes, especially when I was preoccupied with getting Kimberly into said bed. With that, Kim pulled my arms loose and guided me to a chair when she went back to the stove. Next thing I knew, a plate filled with food sat before me. Eggs and bacon, the way I like 'em, with toast and jam. She was going to spoil me. From there, the rest of the day went by in a blur. After breakfast, we got cleaned up, saving hot water course, and dressed for a day out. We drove down to the beach and walked and hit the water. It was like old times, as if we were so much closer than we ever had before. That evening, we had dinner in. I really didn't want to go out there and share her with a bunch of people in a noisy restaurant. So I ordered Chinese. We sat on the floor with Bexy spread around us, ate, and watched Jeopardy. I can't remember when I last felt this content. After I made a mess of myself, chopsticks are not easy to eat with, no matter what some people say. Kim and I cleaned up and settled in on the couch for a quiet evening alone. She turned to look up at me, and I looked down at her. The next thing we knew, lips were locked, hands were roaming, and somehow we ended up back in my bedroom. We did our best in a story to bed. Sheets and pillows went flying, and we ended up moving the bed in our enthusiasm about a foot from the wall. Not that either of us complained. Spent and happy, we tucked a blanket over us and curled to fall asleep, my arms wrapped around my best friend, my lover, and one true love. Saturday morning, I was determined to do the cooking, so I set the alarm clock so I could serve Kim breakfast in bed. Lucky for me, I slammed the thing off before it went off, allowing Kim to simply roll over and continue to sleep as I tossed on my sweats and t-shirt so I could not burn myself up as I attempted to make some food. It wasn't nearly as early as it could have been, and my food-making skills were a bit lacking, but I was able to make acceptable pancakes with syrup and some more bacon and eggs, using a cooking sheet for a tray to cart out the food. Carefully made my way to the bedroom and set our breakfast on the end table. Snuggled under the blanket, I watched Kim sleep on. I must have tired her out. Staring at her, I couldn't help the wave of emotion that washed over me. We were finally together, in every way possible. She was sharing our bed. We were spending our days and nights together doing just normal things, and there weren't any curfews or parents to tell us we were too young to really be in love. The only hard part was to be letting her get on that plane tomorrow morning. But even with that fact, I was sure that Kim was only leaving for a little while. I still had plenty of time between her leaving for the games and when she'd be ready to make a decision, a commitment to our relationship. Even if this had only been a short, wonderful interlude to be followed by more months alone, I could bear it because I had this moment in time to keep me going until we really could live like this day in and day out. The smell of bacon makes my stomach growl, and I decide it's time for slumbering ex-rangers to wake up. With a gentle caress, I rub a finger along her cheek. Her eyes slowly move open. A second later, a sleepy smile greets me as she sews the covers away slightly. "Morning," she says, running a hand through her tousled hair somewhat half-consciously. "How'd you sleep, beautiful?" "Too good. I don't know how I'm going to fall asleep without you anymore." My heart seems to have found its way to his throat, and I swallowed hard. I decide humor is the best way to go cover my out-of-control emotions. "You're just going to miss having a big bed," I replied, brushing my hand along her face again, "and being served breakfast in bed." She smiles and reaches behind her to shove the pillow against the headboard. I scoot a bit further onto the bed with her and place the tray between us. Her eyes light up as she sees my attempt at her favorite breakfast food. "Pancakes!" she says happily. "Are they edible?" "Hey, I can cook some stuff. I tested one before I came in. It was good." This statement gives me a look that says he's not sure she believes me, but reaches for a fork anyway. I would like to take this time out to state one of my favorite jokes from a certain movie. The food was good. I poured enough serum on the stack before I came to be just under the obscene, and she puts a sticky bite full in her mouth. I think naughty thoughts about Kim covered in syrup. It's yummy," she mumbles with around a mouthful as she chews. I take that as a good sign and start to join in. We eat until the plates are mostly clean, occasionally feeding the other. This is bar none one of the most erotic experiences of my life, and I can't wait until I can do this with her on a regular basis. Once I finish, I turn and dump the dishes in the sink and hit the shower alone, while Kim fusses over her wardrobe. She didn't pack a huge suitcase, and I think she's regretting not having more choices of things to wear. I guess some things never change. After a shower and some clean clothes, I waited for Kim to finish up, figuring I had plenty of time. Went down to the command center and checked on the activities. I'm just calling up the area around where the Rangers had found the original crystals on the monitor when a pair of arms circled my neck. "Do I have to drag you away from duty, or are you going to have to come quietly?" Smiling, I turned the chair to find Kimberly smiling at me, all decked out in a pink sundress, reminiscent of our days in Angel Grove. Luckily, it was a bit longer and less see-through than what she would have worn in a day. Of course, she usually had a leotard underneath, but still. "If the reward is going to be with you, I'll gladly come quietly. If you don't," I smirk, hinting on the previous night's activities and what I now consider to be our bed. "Don't get too smug, Mr. Oliver. I seem to remember someone begging last night, and it wasn't me." The next thing I knew, my face was feeling red as my old uniform. Damn! That was just not fair! "Okay, truce," I said, pulling her closer to me, making her sit on my knees. "What do we do today?" "Well, you've been bragging on Freeside being a nice place to live, trying to tempt me to moving in here, so how about a walking tour downtown? I promise not to spend all your money." I laugh and stand her up as I turn to shut everything down. Behind me, I know she's looking over some of the gadget that Haley's been working on. I wonder if she's curious or misses it. Instead of asking, I just get up and rest my hands on her shoulders. She turns and I smile at the sight of her. Let's go. It doesn't take long to get out from the house and into the main downtown area. I drive us there in less than 15 minutes, intent on showing Kim the sights, just as they are. I park the Jeep at the end of the street and jump out to get her door. Walking hand in hand, we pass shop after shop. I guess time has dueled to stop hogging her, and Kim only drags me in a few places, when it will have been almost every one. We're just turning the corner towards the cyber cafe when the wind picks up, and the sound of thunder cracks through the air. Not now, I think helplessly. Kim and I both look up to see the black and green portal form above us, lightning crackling from its center. Before we can move, the space opens up, and Tyranno drones drop from the portal overhead. I fight panic for a moment as 10, maybe 12 Tyranno drones huddled before Kim and I drop into a fighting stance instinctively. "Kim, get the hell out of here!" I shout, hoping I can keep them busy while she gets cleared. "No way!" she yells back, coming up next to me, slipping into a bow rate persistent onto the spot as she always been hers. "I've kicked bad guy ass for years. Just because I've been out of the game for a while, don't think I can't handle myself now." Angry, yet secretly pleased, I vow to make sure that we both get out of this in one piece, and I brace myself for the attack. Suddenly, I hear 3 additional voices from behind us. Looks like they got you outnumbered. Need some help? Says Connor, coming up to my left side. Yeah, that's not fair. You think they had something better to do on a Saturday afternoon, comments Ethan, at Connor's right. Obviously, they don't know when 2 is company and a crowd isn't welcome, quips Kira. All I notice is right next to Kimberly. The 2 share a look, and again think of how similar they are, even with so many teams and years separating them. That's the last of those thoughts, as the first of the Tyrannodrome surges forward and attacks me straight on. I block, then throw a chop at the closest one's neck, then spin it into a back kick, and then come back to the center. I break my focus for a second to see Kimberly do a backflip, her feet casting to Tyrannodrome flying backwards. She lands and twists, and comes out to block a lunge by another Tyrannodrome. Inwardly I smile. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger is true for all of us, not just me. Around me, I note Kira, Connor, and Ethan holding their own, taking the fight to the enemy. Connor and Ethan are really getting the hang of this. I see Ethan block one attack, then use his armor to blast another attacker. Connor zips past one enemy, then punches the other, then gets out of the way so fast that the fist meant for him hits the Tyrannodrome square in the face. I'm starting to take on the renewed advance of my position when I hear a pun from a familiar voice. Eat this, spike face! I see Kim surrounded by at least 3 of them. Quickly, I decide I need to get over there, even if I might bruise her ex-Ranger ego with a rescue. With a bit of concentration, I disappear from sight, and the Tyrannosaurs that were attacking me stop dead in their tracks. Confused, I carefully weave through the fighting to arrive just below a blow starts to come towards Kim from behind. She starts to try and twist to avoid it when I remilitarize and block the blow. Need some help? I ask in my beastlier voice. With a shove, I fling Tyrannodrome away, knocking one of his pals with him. Nice trick, she comments, backhanding the nearest bad guy to her. Let's come in handy at surprise parties. I laugh, launches an attack on 2 that were heading our way, left over from my disappearing act. Kim covers my back, just like in the old days. I speed out and whirl into a sweep kick, bringing the advancing 2 to the ground, then spring up and try and catch a third with a snap kick to his chest, sending him sprawling. I turn to see Kira let out a pterodactyl stream, sending the Tyrannosaurs into spasms. Kim, the team, and I nearly buckle under the sound too. But either we're used to it a bit more, or since Kim didn't go down with the Tyrannosaurs, maybe as Rangers we have better immunity to Ranger powers. I'm not sure. But it's enough to turn the tide, and they start a retreat. Then I start to feel the air get heavy again, and the portal opens, with the defeated Tyrannosaurs making for it as fast as their feet can carry them. We make a point of beating the shit out of them until the last one is running in fear. You still know how to show a girl a good time? Kim quips as the last of the Tyrannosaurs are screamed away they showed up. The portal closing and the sky turning blue again. What can I say? Always was big on the cheap entertainment. I fire back and happily take her hand in mine, refraining from pulling her into me and kissing her in front of Ethan, Kira, and Connor. So, what's up, Dr. O? Letting civilians fight the big guys now? Ethan asked, having missed Kim in my bantering and without really looking at Kim. I look at him like he's stupid, and he looks at her along with the others. I know Kim hasn't changed that much, so I stand there and wait as they take a good, long look and process who she is. My bright students don't take too long. Oh my god! Ethan shouts, realizing who the civilian really is. You're Kimberly! Oh please, like you didn't realize that just now, complains Kira, smirking at her predecessor. The way she kicked her out of her butt? That was old school Ranger all the way. So, are you here to see Dr. O for the weekend? Or are you here for good? Asked Connor. Her eyes fly to me, and I hate the look I see there. She so wishes she could say she was there permanently, but she can't. I know, beautiful. I wish you could stay too. No, just the weekend. Kim finally focuses on the Rangers again. The team got some time off, and Tommy asked if I could come out for a few days. This is so cool! Ethan gussed, hurrying over to offer his hand to Kim. He lets go of mine to shake his. I'm Ethan. We spoke on the phone. I'm finally glad to meet you. He's a Zack and Billy combination, isn't he? Kim shoots my way, and I wince a bit. The team didn't know I was comparing them to our team. I didn't know how to take that. I guess that your visit wouldn't have been complete without being greeted by the welcoming committee. Connor states as he comes up behind to stand by Ethan. And you must be Connor, Kim notes, taking his hand and smiling. What can I say? Even us ex-Rangers have a habit of running into trouble. Besides, it's not like you guys don't have the bad guys drop in on you whenever they like. I notice this team is truly a trance. I remember that Kim always seemed to have that way with people, making them like being around her. Some things never change, including this. And you're Kira. Kim states as he stares at the girl that wears a vision of her uniform in Trini's color. I recognize the smile she gives Kira. It's tinged by memory, and not all of it good. I have so many things I want to ask you, Kira asks, bringing Kim's attention back to her and out of whatever memories he's fallen into. How about we walk to the cyber cafe and get some drinks and sit? This sounds like it might take a while, I suggest, taking Kim's can again, needing the contact. The new Rangers nod in turn, heading as fast as their feet can take them. And realizing they're really looking forward to getting the disc from Kim. I don't know if my rep will survive whatever Kim tells them. They're your students too, right? Kim asks as we walk hand in hand slowly to the front of the cafe. He only seems to close the sign up, but I see the others inside already. Yeah, be prepared for the least tactful, embarrassing questions that he could throw about us. They are teens, remember? I work with that group every day. What are you afraid of? That my telling them about the time you were so scared of asking me out that Zach beat you 3 straight practice karate rounds? He did what? Ethan asked for the red velvet couch that he and Connor had claimed as their own. I hadn't realized we'd come through the door already. Slight distraction on account of teammates' romance. Kim supplies as he settles onto the couch next to Kira, and I perch on the arm of the sofa. Is the place closed? I asked suddenly, thinking about some delicate topics that are on the agenda we don't want anybody to hear. Healy was just closing up, so she asked us to lock up for her, Kira's saying. I struck aside. Guess Kim will have to meet Haley some other time. It's funny. I would have thought she would stay a minute or two longer so she could meet Kim. So, you and Dr. O did the dating thing back in AG? Kira asked, her face nearly giddy. Yes, we dated for about, 2 years or so. Closer to 3, I interject, and get everyone's astonished gaze pointed at me. Hey, if you're going to ask a question, you should get the right answer. And you were Ranger all the time? Connor asks questions, his arm thrown across the back of the sofa. I didn't leave the team until I got offered a once-in-a-chance lifetime opportunity in Florida to train for the Pan Global Games. The team convinced me to go, so I handed my powers to someone else. But Dr. O wasn't always a Ranger during those 3 years, was he? I mean, you guys got picked first, then Dr. O. Ethan queries, scooting closer to Kim as if to make sure he doesn't miss any of the juicy details. No, he wasn't. First chosen were the original 5. Me, Jason, Billy, Zach, and Trini. Tommy moved to the town a few months after we had already been Rangers, and got turned into the evil Green Ranger by Rita. After Jason broke the spell, Tommy worked with us, until he started to lose the Green Ranger power. For a while, he wasn't with us. Then he was able to recharge the powers for a little while before losing them again the final time. Which then led to the Red Ranger powers. The White Ranger powers, then red, and now black, right? Kara said, starting to get the gist of it. What with Kim, Jason, and Dr. O's own video journal. Well, the Red Rangers were mostly after I left, Kim demurred. I rested her hand on her shoulder. The reaction she must have had seeing me in my red turbo uniform when we rescued her and Jason from Divatox must have confused the hell out of her, even if we were apart. It meant that she must have missed an evolution of the team, of me that she never understand. So you guys split up while she was in Florida. How did you get back together? Asked Ethan. I know Kim well enough to feel the tension that instantly appeared on her shoulders. Just as I'm about to say doesn't really matter, Kim's hand shoots up to grab mine, holding my tongue. We hadn't spoken for a long time. When the original Yellow Ranger, one of my best friends, Trini Kwan, was killed in a car crash. We were both at the funeral, and afterwards, we decided it was time to talk and clear the air. You know, you remind me a lot of her, Kim said, looking at Kira. She was such a good fighter, and tough, too. I know she would have liked you. But she didn't have a pterodactyl sword. You did, Kira replied, taking Kim's free hand. True, but I had other swords before I left, so I didn't get stuck with just one thing. Like Tommy, we've both been through our fair share of powers and swords. So, you knew Dr. O before he was a teacher and all, right? Connor interjected suddenly, breaking the pause that had tried to sell over the conversation. Was he always responsible and knowledgeable? What? You mean he didn't tell you that he had a class project to try and fix his worst fault, his forgetfulness? I mean, he was so bad he'd forget his head if he wasn't a test back in the day. Everyone by me started to laugh, and I simply leaned over and kissed Kim's head. I'd get back at her for that later. For a moment, though, I was content to have Kim lean up against me as he related tale after tale about the Rangers' predecessors and the legacy these new Rangers had to live up to. Sunday morning found me getting hit in the face with the bright rays as the sun closed, and I turned slightly to escape it. As I did, I found caramel hair beneath my nose. I didn't know how I was ever going to sleep in this bed without her here again. This is my last morning for a long while with her here, and I pulled her tightly into my arms as I curled her up into her again. There was still a half hour before we had to get up, so I could take her to the airport. But I didn't really want to waste it by sleeping. With deliberate care, I ran my hands against her bare sides. I know she brought some 90s, but I didn't really think of them, including the pink satin camisole that I had to say was my favorite, lasted more than 10 minutes before I tossed it to the floor. Slowly, I used my touch to wake her up, and she turns into my arms. The look in her eyes tells me she knows what I'm thinking. She reaches up to pull my head down to kiss me until I can't remember my own name, until I can convince her to move in with me after the games. This will probably be our last time together. I can't help but want to treasure it. Tommy, at this point, I think you're going to have to start fighting Kim away with a freaking anti-Kim repellent. And even then, I don't think she's going to let that stop her. You're going to have to bring out a force field to stop her. But even then, I think she's going to bury under the force field just to stay with you. Then again, I've read the end of this story. And believe you me, it is awesome. We make love slowly, leisurely. And when we're through, we're simply cling to each other beneath the covers. I have to remind myself again and again that this is not the end. We're just going to have it to be apart for a little while. We'll call and email, and when it's all over, I'll pick her up at the airport and never let her go. Suddenly the alarm goes off. Breaking to pieces settle over us. We look at each other regretfully and get out of bed. I know I won't be able to keep my hands off her, so I send her to shower first. If I joined her, well, all I can say is that the water would be cold by the time any real cleanup would be taking place. I catch up with a quick shower, toss on my cargos, and black t-shirt with one of my flannel shirts. When Kim says it, she smiles, and I remember a green checkered flannel that she ended up giving me back after borrowing it. For a month. After a quick breakfast, I grab her bag in one hand and escort her out the door. Tossing the bag in the Jeep, Kim and I get in, and we spend the drive mostly in silence, trying to get used to the idea of not being able to touch each other whenever we want. It doesn't take long before we're parking lot airport. I find a space and park the Jeep. I get out, reaching for the bag. I turn to find Kim right beside me, her hand outstretched, reaching for mine. Slowly we walk toward the terminal, and I drop off her luggage at the curb before we head inside. Her flight leaves in half an hour, and this is as close as we can cut it without her getting held up in security, missing her flight. The silence is starting to get to me, so I asked the question I promised I wouldn't hound her with the whole time she was here. She's getting ready to leave, so I should be safe in doing it now. So, you still thinking that Rooside might be a nice place to live? I ask seriously as Kim and I walk along the breezeway to the security gates. Just like home, she answers softly. I realize her answer isn't a cliche. It's true. Wherever the other is, that's home for us, and I want her home. Before we know it, the security gate looms before us. I find my hands shaking slightly. I don't want her to go. I don't know what Mesogog is planning on throwing us next, but I know having her here makes it better than it is without her. My humor and lightheartedness is less forced, less fake when she's at my side. But I know it's selfish of me to ask her to stay again. I know she wants to. Then when she would love to rip off her return ticket and come back to our bed. But she can't. And I won't antagonize her over it by asking her to. I stare down at those brown eyes and see tears starting to form. Quickly, I swipe at her face to stop the liquid in her tracks. I'll expect a call from you when you get in tonight, alright? It won't be a long call. I'll probably be tired, she replies tightly. I know, but I need to hear your voice. We stand and stare at each other a bit longer. Then I pull her in tight to me and kiss her. It's the kind of kiss that makes you question whether or not a soul could truly be shared by two people.
Oh, Mom? Are those two suck a face like you and I do?
Yes, Miss Sale. Now turn away and don't pay attention to other people as they are making out. It isn't forever, you know. I'll be back soon. What? You made your decision?
I think I could get like Rooside.
even with regular monster attacks. Besides, that bed was mighty comfortable. She winks at me, and I feel like a 1,000-pound weight has come off my chest, and I press her tightly to me. We stand there for long moments before I remind myself I have to let her go so she can come back. With every ounce of strength I have, I slowly release Kim, just until our hands are clasped together. I guess we'll talk about the particulars later. We have months to plan before I leave for Greece, she confirms to me. Besides, now we have something to talk about in addition to work when you call. Nodding, I reach over and kiss her again. Not a kiss goodbye, but a kiss of promise. This time, I know there won't be a letter in the mail breaking things off. That she'll be coming back to me when her commitment is finished. I loosen my hold on her, and she pulls away slightly, only one hand connecting us to each other. Then, she gives me with that stunning smile I remember from my first day at Angel Grove High. It still makes me grin like an idiot.
I love you, Tommy.
I love you, beautiful, I reply. With that, she lets go of my hand and backs pedal up the slight slope to the security gates. Our eyes stay locked, and I see a million thoughts and feelings and promises in hers that I know she can see reflected in mine. Finally, she's at that metal detector and has to break away. I watch the state usher her through, and then she's past my sight. For another minute, I stand there, slightly afraid. She promised she'd come back last time, but she hadn't. Did I trust that this time would be different? I knew it was, though. We were both different, and this, us, was something that we now knew wouldn't ever walk away from. We learned that the hard way. But now, all I could do was wait. Wait for her phone call tonight. Wait until the Olympics were over. And wait until the time was right to make this permanent. One day, Kim, I'm going to have you stay for good. Even if I had to put a ring on your finger to do it. But not today. End of chapter. No, that would come later. And that's the chapter. I hope this lets you guys see why I love this fic so much. This fic came from. I remember reading this fic during my little darker time. For those of you curious, I consider it the darker time that back when I used to not read as many fanfics, and all I did was read lemons, and used to just spend my days doing sex RPs and just watching hentai and never really checking out the good stuff like this, or just reading a bunch of MS Teens and never really reading or trying to even find really good fanfics. This was one of those things that set the stage for the big one. It's a dangerous business going out your door. This one, to me, is really special because of all the things it is. First off, as a Tommy and Kim fic, getting back together story, it's really, really good. I know I had Trixie mention about the award for best sex scene, but it's done more. It's won several well-written awards, and I think you can see why. The grammar, the pacing, the punctuation, all of it is done perfectly. It's rare to find a mistake, and it's even rarer to slip up just because of the author's mistake. It's gorgeous, and it's done, how it's done. Characterizations? The writer manages to keep Tommy and Kim both in character, as well as Connor, Ethan, Kira, Trent, Jason, Zach. Oh yes, the other teams show up. Heck, well, with the possible exception of the rest of the Time Ranger team, but I think I'm going to forget that one. The romance? I always said that when it comes to ships, I'm okay with anything now, as long as you guys make it believable and develop it. And this is an important subject to tackle. Tommy and Kim's breakup. I said before in a previous video that so many people who worry about Twixie or Rainbow Dash ships worry about if they decide to give a male guy. Gotta consider, you guys never had to deal with two lovers who you seem bonded together break up because of a stupid letter that really shouldn't have existed. we in the Tommy and Kim fan base had to sit up. And Tommy and Kim are also important to me as they are the first shipping couple I really got into as a fan way back when I was a little kid. They were big for me, and that Dear John letter really ticked me off. And over time, there have been plenty of Tommy and Kim fanfics where they tried to fix that Dear John letter, or try to say it never happened. This, in my opinion, does it the best. Why? Simple. Because this one actually takes the time to develop. A lot of the others I see try to excuse it with either a pregnancy with Tommy's kid or some other stupid reason. This one does lay it bare bones. It happened. Can't disagree with it. It happened. But when they bond and let everything out, they start to realize, okay, it happened, but maybe we can find something there to rekindle it. And rekindle, as you can see, they do. They talk slowly. They bond over their past relationships and over their old days as a ranger. They allow their relationship to grow back, become stronger than ever, because they allow the bonds that were already there to come to them. It flows naturally as a narrative. It doesn't just instantly throw them back together and say, "Hey, Tommy and Kim are back together." Woo! What it just goes, "Okay, Tom and Kim aren't together." They talk. Over the talking, they slowly get back together. More talking, get closer, closer, until the big moment, which is here, where they finally commit. They finally connect and, well, commit. They finally establish a relationship and a really nice, well-written sex scene. Yeah, I have no problem with sex scenes as long as it's got something to do with the plot. Later on, if you were to read the rest of this fic, you would see so many things done well here. There's a fight with Mesogog, there's a saving Kim moment, and the wedding is beautiful. This author has also given us several other fanfics set in the same universe, with Tommy and Kim's daughter, Elizabeth, some of the other relationships between the other Rangers, and apparently she's also done, and for a minute I thought she retired, but then she came back to do a stories about Arrow. And personally, I can't wait. This writer is one of those classic ones of any fanfic genre, and I highly recommend you go back and reading her work. She does this expertly. Huh. I wonder, maybe this is why I'm okay with the pacing of, say, Elements of Harmony and Savior Worlds, because this one also takes the pacing to get into the big conflict, while it still manages to let us build up with the characters. Because some of you new fans might not even know why this relationship is important, but if you were to read this from the beginning, you would see why. There are other things that happen in this fanfic that make it really, really good, and there's just too much to talk about in this short amount of time. All I really wanted to do with this chapter was to establish why I love this particular fanfic, and give you a small little dose. Maybe I might come back to read the final few chapters of the wedding, or maybe I might come back with something else from this universe. But for now, I hope this one can help you enjoy and realize what a wonderful story it can be. Well, I think that will help me get back in the game. I've got a lot of things to do here, namely trying to find adoptions for Gray, all these Eevees that I just happen to now adopted. Flare! I hope you guys stay around because you know what's next. Happily Ever After. Plus the last chapter on Saturday. Then, more Elements of Harmony. But till then, I've got plenty more fanfics just waiting for you. So, from all of us here at Martial Art for Users channel, I'll see you next time.